you're using the wrong bass with the wrong number of strings to practice all the wrong stuff, we got a lot to sort out. Metal Bass Monday. So, the quick updates for the channel. I have set up the Discord server that I mentioned last time. I'm going to put a link up next week, but I wanted to get some input from everybody. And I'm looking at doing some live streams over on there, and what times and what days seem to work for everybody. I figure maybe a weekend thing, so even though a lot of us still aren't back to work, those of us that are still or have schedules or other things are working at home might have the days off and be easier to configure. But you let me know. Give me a shout down below and I'll try and pick the best available times. Get some live stuff going and we'll get in there and have some fun. Outside of that, also coming up this week, I'm going to have a review of the thrash metal documentary about the Bay Area scene called Murder in the Front Row. Check that out. It's not just going to be a review, which is interesting enough, but I think there's a lot of interesting commentary about what's going on now musically and why things are different from that period and some things we can learn from it. So keep an eye out for that. Check it out. It'll be up real shortly behind this one. So with that said, let's get into topic one. Now, on a lot of forums and even messages that I get, there's a lot of debate about whether 4-string, 5-string, 6-string is the right way to go. How hard is it to transition? What should you be doing? Should you down tune a 4? Should you move to a 5? It's better to go right from 4 to 6. All this type of stuff. So let's dissect this, and you may be surprised at what some of my thoughts and opinions are on it and what's worked out best for me. The main reason that a lot of players say that they want to pick up 5 or 6 string if they're moving from a 4 is that they get a lot more note coverage underneath of one hand position. That, you know, having that extra string, they don't have to shift positions and they can cover the same amount of area in one place. That's a pretty valid statement. I don't happen to really think that way, but I understand it. And this is one of the places where if you're looking at it from this position, that really just comes down to personal taste and what you're looking to get out of it. I don't mind moving around the neck. I actually kind of enjoy it. I'm a very linear player in that I tend to move up and down the neck a lot. For me, I think very this end low, this end high. I don't think of it across the board quite as much. If I have a 5-string or a 6-string, I look at it more as just more notes. I'm able to do a lot more so that when I play up high, I have more available in the high range. When I play low, I have more in the low range. If you're just looking at it from a low end kind of thing, you might want to give consideration to just detuning a 4-string. I do that a lot. I play in C standard, B standard, sometimes even A. That does it for me a lot. You know, it's not having that upper string. It's not like I don't have most of those notes. I can just move in position. I don't mind burning a couple extra calories making those hand shifts. I can stand it. It really comes down to your playing style and how much efficiency, whether you're more comfortable string skipping or moving to achieve those notes. When it comes down to it, I always try and think of the idea of less that you have to deal with being more. So if I can get away with doing everything I need to do with less strings, I'll move to that. And, you know, I'm a player that's gone from 4 to 5 to 6. I even played a 7 for a while. So it's not like I have something against these other instruments. You see me play a 5 all the time. I've got a 6-string actually on the way because there's a few things that I do need it for some tapping things I'm going to be doing. But as far as whether, you know, you're looking at down tuning or moving to a 5, there are other considerations. And one of them being that the more strings you add, the more complications you do. Just muting is changing. The way your hand position sits is changing, and I'm not deterring you from these things. I'm just saying that there are other considerations, whether you're trying to figure out, do I need to just get better at shifting positions and learning my scales, or should I shift to a 5 or a 6 string? Most of the guys that I see, especially in metal, grab a 5 string not because they need all that space, but they just want the lower tuning. And for me, if that's really what you're after, I kind of think of, a 4 string is just still your best bet. It's just not having that extra string. Well, one, you save money on strings, but getting a low tuning is easy enough, getting it to sound good, and not having to worry about muting, not having to change to a wider position. And there is something just kind of cool and sexy about the way a 4 string feels. It's a Ferrari, whereas the others are a bit more complicated. But if you actually need to do wider range tapping, if you do need the expansiveness to really rapidly move around inside a one hand position, that's where I would say go ahead and make the leap. The one thing I would advise against is some people feel like they can only move up in stages. Like if I'm going to go from 4, I need to go to 5, learn that, and then go to 6. That's not how I wound up doing it. I actually moved from 4 directly to 6. I've actually only recently owned 5 strings. I had either a 6 string or a 4. And it was because I was thinking if I'm going to go and expand and learn this wider fingerboard and use these techniques that take advantage of it, I may as well go whole hog. I even moved up to a 7 string for a little while. I just found that one I just wasn't taking full advantage of. So I moved back to 6, and then there were a lot of lines where I found out I just wasn't taking advantage of the high C that much, so 5 became kind of through experimentation where I landed. Don't feel like you have to go in stages or that it's going to be this massive thing. Get some good instruction and some good pieces if you're going to move from 4 to 6 or 4 to 5 even. But just get a piece of music or something that you think would be interesting and just start from there instead of trying to reorient yourself mentally or just try and go, well, I'm going to play it like a 4 string and then just hope I come up with a use for the other 2 strings or whatever. If you really, and you have to kind of be frank with yourself, if you really don't think you're going to be using all that space that much, or you can get the job done just by detuning, why spend the money and chuck all your old basses and the things you're comfortable with? Just go ahead and drop your tuning down and have fun with it. And like I said, for me, if it's not fun, I really just don't have that much motivation to play it. And there's just something to me about the challenge of shifting positions and jumping around and playing up in one area and then moving to another. It's more action to me, for a lack of a better term. It's just a bit more exciting. It's, almost becomes video game-ish moving around, and I have fun with it. Do what feels best to you in the end, but I always think of, if I don't absolutely need it, cut it out, because it's just one more complication and it's more likely to lead to sloppy playing or strings ringing out, or just having a bass that could be a bit more sleek and finessed in under your hands and easier technique. You're playing an instrument that you're really just not taking the full advantage of. So that would be my advice on how to choose, and some considerations about being kind of honest with yourself. A lot of people will say you got to have a 5 to play extreme metal, or you got to have a 6 if you're going to do prog, or that it's all garbage and nonsense. You're not getting that much more out of it in one hand position. You're really not. I say stay uncomplicated, but let me know what you think down below. We'll hash it out. Next topic. The theme of this week is me giving advice about topics with answers I know aren't usually the ones you're going to get. And as far as this piece of advice, it's one that I'm going to relate a story to about exactly how it impacted me and why I'm pretty strong about this one. And that is, if you're not interested in a form of music, don't spend time on it. Seriously, I don't let anybody guilt you into, well, you should learn jazz because of this, or you should learn classical because of that. I actually did, but I'm interested in that stuff. If you're not into something, here's the thing that they never warn you about when, people or, genre snobs try and tell you to be a good player, you have to explore something, or even inside of metal. If you don't like technical death metal, but well, you have to learn to play this to be, a hot shot, or play a six string and do all this crazy arpeggio stuff. Don't learn it. Don't waste your time on it. You get one lifetime as far as playing and enjoying your instrument, and playing what other people think you should be doing is a waste of time, and you're living for somebody else who probably doesn't care. Real talk here. It's one of the worst things, I think, is taking time that you could be experiencing the real joy of expressing exactly what you want to do, playing the music you want to do, and having the thing that inspired you to pick up the instrument be muted in favor of some kind of nonsense academic pursuit. Now, the direct story and warning I can give is that the biggest problem with this is that, again, we have muscle memory, we have habits, and if you drill yourself on music that you don't enjoy that much, those habits will replace the ones that you usually have. You're gonna start playing that way. It's the old thing about your practice is just like they say about your focus in life. Whatever you focus on is what you're gonna see. This actually happened to me. It wasn't fun. Now, if you follow the channel, you know I taught for a little bit at Musicians Institute, and I was a student beforehand. I graduated from the bass program there, and I did a lot of study on kind of something that was emphasized there, at least with the players and some of the classes I was taking, and it was this kind of very jazz and rock or fusion style crossover, where, understandably they're trying to teach some more advanced theory and things like that, but the stuff was absolutely the most tedious thing ever. It was just, to me, boring as hell. It was murder getting myself to practice the stuff. I knew there were some things I might want to learn in it and things, and I had to get through the courses. But I spent so much time doing it, and then when I taught after the classes I was teaching in, or if I was just sitting in subbing, like say with a guitar player and I had to accompany them, the music I had to learn constantly, I was drilling on, 6, 7, 8 hours a day. It became how I played. After I left teaching there, I was really kind of depressed. I wound up putting the bass down, and I didn't touch it for almost 4 months. I loved playing bass, and I sat down, I remember the specific day, sat down and tried to start playing and come up with some stuff that was more metal sounding or trying to write music, and all that just kept coming out of me was rehashes of this stuff I couldn't stand. I didn't sound like me anymore. And I just got so upset about it, I actually went and just started working with synthesizers and keyboards and things I was interested in outside of bass, something that would be so totally different I wouldn't have a point of reference. And I put my bass in a case and didn't touch it for 4 months. It was only after learning a few things, which I've talked about on the channel before too, and we're really going to get into when I talk about the songwriting and production course I'm going to be doing, about how to really get the focus back on yourself as a listener and what you enjoy, and stop playing out of muscle memory and start listening to the voice in your head and writing from that angle. And that was the problem. I had drilled myself so hard that all of my muscle memory and all my physical habits went immediately to things and shapes and sounds that I just didn't enjoy anymore. It's a danger. It can happen. I'm not trying to make you paranoid. I mean, learn outside music if you want to. Like I listen to, swing, which I really like. It's the one form of jazz I really enjoy. I listen to classical pieces. I listen to a lot of orchestral and soundtrack things. I like pop music from the 80s, like the new wave movement and stuff. I listen to that type of stuff. All these varieties of music, but I love all of them. That's not what I want to discourage you from. What I want to discourage you from is being led down a path by someone else who tells you to be a well-rounded musician, or any of this other garbage, that you should be learning what they think is good. You are the only judge of that. Ignore anyone else, and you got to follow your heart on this stuff, because you don't want to end up where I did at one point, You don't want to develop off in a direction that will do you no good at the end. Every minute you spend learning that music is a moment that is going to be wasted. You're going to have to burn those habits out of yourself and then go back and realize that you lost the time you could have been doing, your real joy and learning what you wanted to. Whatever you do has validity. Do the thing that made you pick up the instrument. Don't learn something just because someone else tells you, because it will affect your playing. You don't want to get to that point of disappointment. That's the worst possible thing. We don't get much a lot of time out of our music careers. Make sure you get the most out of it and that your playing makes you happy. And maintain that focus. I'm actually going to give that as the secondary follow-up here. Is a lot of times you might be hanging around with somebody, or you can kind of wander off feeling like you're kind of interested in something, or it's this thing of, I'm going to explore this, and you get off on a tangent. Try and keep your focus on that too. A lot of times there are outside pressures or things that are making you think that you're interested in something, when it's really just you're trying to justify to yourself why you started listening to it. Like, I can say the same thing with myself. Like, I got into playing in a very early prog metal stuff, Dream Theater type of things and stuff, because I listened to Fate's Warning and stuff like that coming up, and I thought, it's a natural progression of this. I don't have anything against Dream Theater or Symphony X or something like that, but I was hanging with a lot of guys who were the only ones I knew that were still doing metal in my area, and they were really into it, so I kind of learned to like it. And then I woke up, a few months down the road and went, this is boring the hell out of me. I just have nothing into this. So, again, it's nothing against those bands. You got phenomenal musicians and stuff. I just don't find it that interesting to listen to. There's a couple songs here and there. It's just not my bag. But if that's yours, go to that. But I should have spent that time sticking with what really made me want to jam, and the first thing I flipped on in the morning. So don't let yourself get kind of led astray either. Really listen and remember what made you pick up that instrument. I find if you stick with that, explore out to the sides, but stick on that main road and it'll take you where you want to go. With that said, you got all the stuff and all my opinions, and you can tell me how wrong I am or anything else, or give me your stories. Have you ever been playing in a band or gone down a road with a certain genre or style of music and just realized it's not me and had to turn around? Have you been in a band and just realized you joined it because you were just bored and it just wasn't for you, and did it affect your playing? I'd love to hear your stories and things. So let's get down in the comments and talk it out. So for next Metal Based Monday, I'm going to be getting into some stuff that I have got some other messages about. And one of the topics is going to be about industry things and about distribution. And I've got some very cool new info coming up about that, about putting out your songs or albums or whatever kind of distribution. Something exciting's going on that front. And it's going to kind of open up the talk about developing your presence, developing your branding and things, and be the basic kickoff of the songwriting and how to start your band, get your vision as far as the music goes, start producing and recording. I will see you next week. Hopefully things will be relaxed a bit more and we can also get outside, get back to jamming with each other. I hope you're all well. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you on the next one.